Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and welcome back to another Monday. Joining me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. I have a couple good jokes for you to start off this week. When does a joke turn into a dad joke?
When I open my mouth.
Close. When it becomes apparent.
Wait.
Here's another really good one, and I couldn't help it because this totally reminded me of you.
Uh-oh.
What do you call an alligator in a vest?
Al Pacino?
An investigator.
I like it. Why did that remind you of me?
Because I think it's absolutely cute. Plus, you like alligators.
I do. Florida man.
Oh, Florida man. Well, talking about Florida man, I actually have a couple dating jokes that might remind you of Florida man. And it had me thinking, the dating scene nowadays, kind of scary. So, Timstradamus,
Voyse?
what kind of a pickup line did you like to say when you were younger?
Well, I actually only really used a pickup line once. And if you remember, it was on you.
Oh.
And it was the lamest thing I could have ever said. Hey, lady. You the sexy.
I actually remember that. And I fell for it. It made me see that you had a good sense of humor. I've never used a pickup line. However, if I had one, I would definitely say, if you were a triangle, you'd be a cute one.
Thank you. I'm more like a box shape right now, but I'll get back at you. Cute jokes to get us kicked off with.
Yeah, I just figured give you a little sneak peek into some of the stories we might have coming.
Oh, a sneaky peeky.
Ooh.
For our new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for that.
Well, Voyse.
Timstradamus.
We have some new shout-outs to make.
We do. We have 2 new Teatrions. Welcome to the Tea Club, Jenna, and the Scarlet Moth.
That's a dope name.
I thought you'd like
the
that
Scarlet
one.
Moth?
Yeah.
I'm a fan. Welcome in. Love and appreciate you guys.
Well, Damus, go ahead and pick up your morning cup of brewing. Let me know what you think about the myriad of flavors I have steeping for you.
Oh, I like the word choice.
Thank you.
Oh, that's really good. They give me the goosebumps. Like shot up the side of my cheek. You know that tingle?
Did it hit the jawline?
Yeah, that was really good.
So it has rosemary, nettle, rose hips, rooibos, lavender, ginger, fennel, cinnamon, licorice root, cardamom, clove, and purity. Purity. We're going to keep all of that in. I messed up that tea name real bad, but I'm not saying that again.
Well, I think it tastes fantastic. That's a 10 out of 10.
Thank you. Well, while you go ahead and enjoy your morning cup of brew, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listener wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. I like how you did the preemptive dance. For our first story, am I the a-hole for not signing off on my dead mom's house before receiving my portion of the value? My mother passed away suddenly about a month ago. It was a very shocking, traumatizing, and emotional situation, which I am sure is adding to the issues. She left her house to my older sister and myself. I took 2 weeks off of work to help go through all of my mother's belongings and coordinated the entire memorial. My sister moved into my mother's house shortly after my mother's passing, which we agreed on. And the other half of the agreement between us and per mother before she passed was she was to pay me half of the house's value. This was also the agreed terms if I moved into the house instead. I have since informed my sister that I do not want the full half of the house's value. Instead, I would be fine with about 25%, including the $11,000 my mom loaned me before she passed, which I am now not paying back. So 25% minus $11,000. Now she is asking me to sign my name off of the house's deed before she has even refinanced the house and paid me my portion. She is calling me money hungry and basically painting me as the villain when this was the expected and legal agreement the entire time. My husband and I could desperately use the money too, as we purchased my grandmother's house after her passing, and doing so put us into a lot of debt. Not that that really has any bearing on the situation at hand, it would just really help. But am I the a-hole for not signing my name off on the deed until I'm paid the 25% minus $11,000 portion of the house? Edit. My brain is still moving a million miles a minute, so I wanted to add more context than I put originally. I really want to avoid legal action because I don't want to hurt my sister. I love her very much, and I am just frustrated with the situation. I have also agreed to give her any time she needs because her ex screwed her over financially big time. I am not asking to get the money quickly. I just want it in general. I also know we are both emotional and heated, but it just really hurt me when she says I'm just focused on money and treating her like she's gonna screw me over, as she said, because I just want the same treatment I would have given her if the roles were reversed, because that's what the three of us, my sister, myself, and my mother, all agreed on years ago. Just to clarify for everyone, I am not signing off and never plan to. She's just trying to get me to. Also, 25% of the house's value is over $50,000, which is more than enough money to clear our debts and give us a good financial cushion. Am I the a-hole? Just to go ahead and add, our OP did confirm in the comment section that her sister is the executioner of the will.
Okay, so she would know exactly how that will is supposed to be conducted. This was put in a legal document and then talked about earlier before the unfortunate passing of their mother. I understand the hurt because if you have unfortunately lost somebody, going through a will and having to make sure that it is abided by can be difficult, especially if there have been problems or if, in this case, the older sister is feeling very hurt by the request of our OP. Because she does say it. You're treating me as if I'm going to screw you over. You know, I can get why you would have that knee-jerk reaction to something if you're not used to doing things by the rules.
A more casual way of dealing with family.
But there's a reason why these things are written the way they are. It's to be followed in that way. Because the truth is, you could indeed screw ROP over down the road. So I can understand wanting to make sure that you dot your T's and cross your I's. But OP, yeah, you're not the a-hole in my opinion. I just feel like you and your sister should have taken some time. Your mother just passed. She is correct. Emotions are very high. I can understand wanting to facilitate all those things quickly, but to do it at the odds of making someone feel pressured is the issue, especially when you know it's all in a legal document.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. In fact, many Redditors were suggesting that our OP get a lawyer just in case.
Sure.
Not to actually go after the sister, and that it was very nice, especially in her edit, that she says she wasn't asking for the money right then and there. She just refused to sign her name off until everything got cleared off. I do side with a lot of the Redditors that came forward saying that the problem here stems that the sister is the executioner of the will. And because emotions are high and there appear to be a lot of words being thrown back and forth regarding one action or another, that a lot of the times you would prefer an executioner of the will to be a third party.
Outside of the people who are receiving the will.
Exactly. That way emotions aren't factored as a reason to sort of weaponize a will and a relationship against each other in the middle of grief and loss. So I do hope that our OP stands by, one, making sure that legally she's in the right here. She's not doing anything bad, especially considering that she's only asking for 25% of the value and not 50%. There are a lot of Redditors out there that wanted to go more of the petty route and said, look, if you can't abide by waiting until we're clear and I get my portion of the value and then I can sign off my name, then I want the full 50%. I think doing that would probably create more of a wedge in their relationship.
Sure. And then you have to, again, put into account they just lost their mother. Obviously, you're not operating in the same capacity that you normally would have, especially with understanding and seeing things the way you should. I'm never going to agree with people taking the petty route. I think that does you and the person a disservice.
I 100% agree. Well, let's go on to our next situation, and this is one of those dates I was telling you about. Am I the jerk for having my boss call me into work to get out of a date? I, 43 female, am an EMT in the Southeast US. This is important for context. I had a first date on Saturday night. The person claimed to be disabled and unable to walk. By what he had said in texts, he seemed legit. The house was in a part of our county that is rural, with a mix of nice and question your safety walking in the door. He told me how much it had cost him 20 years ago, so it sounded like a nice place. I had to go get money from him to go back into town to get dinner. When I arrived the first time to the house, I was not liking what I was seeing, but I would give him a chance. Rough outside does not mean rough inside, especially if you are disabled. Never judge a book by its cover. He told me to come in when I got there, but the door was locked. I knocked and his roommate let me in. Okay, no big deal. What I did see of the house was just as rough as the outside. Then I got to his room. Yes, he was unable to walk. He had a prosthetic leg. That I didn't mind. Even him being in bed was not an issue. The first thing for me was that he didn't put on a shirt. This was to be a date. I was raised that even if you feel like you are going to die, you put on clothes when someone comes over. There was no room to move around in his room due to the bed, furniture, and large TV beside his bed. He had a large TV on his dresser that was also on. He gave me cash to get dinner and drinks for us. He said he was diabetic and wanted 2 large sweet teas from McDonald's. As I was heading back into town, he texted me his order from the local Mexican restaurant. All the way back into town, I was trying to figure out how to get out of the date. I placed our food order to go and waited for it to be ready, still trying to think on what to do. Once the food was ready, I went to McDonald's to get his drink. While in the drive-thru, I checked who the night lieutenant was. It is someone that I knew would help me. I text the supervisor's phone asking him to text me in 20 minutes to report to base to get me out of my date. I agreed to work until 11 p.m. He asked if I wanted a text or call. I text to call me in 20. When I got to the house, I text my lieutenant 2 minutes. I took the food and my date's drinks in the house. I could smell cigarette smoke as soon as I walked in the door. He was smoking in his room. I asked if it was menthol and he said yes. I told him I could not be around it because I have an allergy to it that could knock me out of work for 3 days. He did put out the cigarette right away. His profile never said he smoked, and I don't date smokers. Right on time, my supervisor called and said they needed me to come in right now to handle overflow calls. I told him I would be there in 20, apologized to my date, took part of my dinner with me, and left. I stopped at my house long enough to grab my pants and boots. They had a uniform shirt waiting for me at base. I did run the overflow non-emergent calls. I did text the guy the next day that things just would not work out between us and good luck in the future. He texted, fine by him. So, was I the jerk?
OP's in her 40s? She doesn't say how old the gentleman is. I assume probably around the same age.
Probably.
She does say he is disabled. So she knows all of these factors going into this, and it doesn't bother her. So at least she's being open-minded. Now, where the list starts kicking off for me is, she says it's in a sketchy but not sketchy part of the town. It's rural. I'm assuming this is the U.S. She says the South. So
Southeast U.S., yeah. Yes.
He tells her to just walk on in, but the door's locked.
Correct.
All right, that's number one. That starts sending up the hackles. I can see that. She says, don't judge the book by its cover. I think that's a good way to be, but also you need to understand that when your intuition, when your gut's telling you something's off, you also need to listen to that. Don't be fooled into believing that everything is safe and okay just because you're trying to
keep an open mind.
And I love that and I can appreciate that, but trust your gut first because you can still walk that line. It is a fine line, but you can still walk that line of being respectful and open-minded with people, but still protect you. I think that's a fair deal. I don't know if any dates that I've heard of have kicked off meeting someone at their home. But she goes in. Number 2, he's not dressed for the occasion. He's shirtless. They're on a date. Dress accordingly. You shouldn't be shirtless the first date. Now, maybe in your culture, if that's how it is, then I can't hate on that. But it is odd that you wouldn't at least put forth any effort. The next one. The second they meet, I guess he sends her off to go pick up food. It's a date. I don't understand why we couldn't have at least talked about, and again, it's rural. I understand if you're going to say, let's DoorDash or something to the house, that can get a little costly, but I don't hear where that was even talked about. I hear where he said, hey, look, I need you to go run into town and pick me up some stuff.
Not just that. Apparently she had to go to 2 different places. She went to a Mexican restaurant for the food based on what she said. And then she specifically went to McDonald's for 2 large sweet teas for him.
How many people would sign up for a first date that started with those conditions already?
Not very many.
I see no thoughtfulness on the other end. It's a first date. It's supposed to be something where you both are trying to meet in the middle on things. It should not just be one half of the party having to do everything. But she goes along with it still. She's still being open-minded and understanding. I think a lot of people at that point would have cut bait and not even shown back up with the food. But she still does the right thing in her mind. So as she's taking the food back, she calls her boss and takes a shift. Could you imagine signing up to work an extra shift of anything to avoid a date?
That would be pretty bad.
But I don't believe you're the a-hole for not wanting to continue a date. You don't owe somebody a date.
So the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. Many Redditors were saying OP shouldn't try to have to deal with a bad date. Some were saying that she should contact their date and tell them that they're not interested. OP actually did say in a comment, I did text him the next day saying I knew would not work between us. I did tell him I don't date smokers. He replied, fine by me. However, there are some things I would like to go ahead and add to this myself. Rather than her say that she just doesn't date smokers, it would have been nice that she would have actually put a little bit more detail as to, look, the date didn't feel like it was coming off right. I arrived, you didn't even have your clothes on. It didn't feel like I was being prioritized as a proper date, but more of just a delivery for your food.
Sure.
And that really made the date kind of sour for me. You know, I do wish you the best, and I hope that you're able to find someone that has those same values as you, and you guys can make each other happy. But saying that in someone's face in their actual house,
even if you weren't in their house, just by texting, I can understand where that might put you in a very dangerous situation, and I can understand wanting to make sure you're safe.
But to flip to the other side, I don't think how our OP dealt with this was bad at all, personally. I mean, you are very right. She literally took on another work shift just to get out of this date, to pick between having some free time and then saying, I would prefer to go back to my work and deal with work. That is pretty rough. It just sounded like, at least on my front, maybe OP didn't properly have the conversations that she should have, such as the total deal breakers on her end, especially when apparently she comes back and he's smoking. And that's something that she says is an absolute no-go, especially since she has an allergy. Now, he was actually kind enough to turn off the cigarette, but just because someone's kind enough to turn off the cigarette doesn't mean the habit just goes away. We
also don't know how far along she is in the dating scene for herself. She's in her 40s. I'm not certain if she's had a marriage already and this is her first, hop in to what dating looks like in your 40s. But, hopefully she learns the lessons and yes, outline exactly what the expectations are when you're talking.
Well, I do wish our OP a lot of good luck when it comes to dating because, as I said, dating nowadays, that's a different beast.
While it can be a bad process for people, don't give up. Just make sure you have your values and stick to them.
Well, let's go to our next story and see what you think about a disinterested honeymoon. Am I overreacting for my wife's disinterest in intimacy on our honeymoon? Today, me, 26 male, and my wife, 26 female, were packing for our upcoming honeymoon to Mexico. Everything was moving smoothly as we carefully laid out our plans for while we are there and what to bring, but ultimately derailed after I made a few suggestions. First, I asked if she wanted to pack any lingerie for the trip, to which she replied, "Why would I want to bring lingerie to Mexico? That doesn't make sense." I just mentioned that it wasn't to be worn outside of our hotel room, but she didn't seem to have any enthusiasm to the subject. Now, I believe she can wear whatever she would like to wear, but that's not the issue. But it certainly was disappointing that we were not on the same page romantically. Then, as we were packing, she mentioned if she can bring her vibrator. I said, of course, and then proceeded to ask if there was any other sex toys that she wanted to bring. She quickly shot them down and had no enthusiasm on the subject. Now, once again, these are her toys and not for me, so it is what it is. However, I certainly was disappointed that we were further not on the same page romantically. Now, the straw that broke the camel's back is when I told her that I'll bring the massage oil, which is good for all massages for the both of us. It's not a lube. She said that she doesn't see the need as she won't have the time for me to massage her and will be too busy. I replied, too busy doing what? swimming at the beach and eating at a fucking buffet. And she got all defensive, saying that there's no reason for me to get all offended. I kind of just paused and eventually had to leave to go hide in the basement, where I just broke down in tears. It's clear this goes beyond not being on the same page romantically. She has zero romantic interest at all. On vacation, you have all the time in the world to do what you prioritize. I absolutely want to go out on excursions with her and just simply relax at the resort. But in a 24-hour day, I don't think it's completely unreasonable for two people in their 20s to dedicate a part of their trip to romance and intimacy. I mean, it's our honeymoon, for Christ's sakes. Sure, we've been together for 4 years, so we're past the honeymoon stage, but it's still our first vacation and trip outside the country. At this point, I'm just feeling empty and no longer looking forward to go. Am I overreacting?
Okay, so I have many questions when it comes to this OP and the relationship he has with his not fiance. They just got married. They're about to go to their honeymoon.
Correct.
And they've been together for 4 years, I believe.
Yes.
Going to Mexico. Good for you guys. Congrats. This whole thing centers around him feeling
Intimately abandoned?
Okay, that's a good way to put it. At the end of this whole thing, after he tells us everything, he goes down to the basement and has a breakdown over it. Does he ever fill in what the first 4 years of this relationship look like as far as their bedroom activity? Because he's wanting this, right? But does her libido, has it ever matched his?
There were actually some Redditors that wanted more information about their history of intimacy. And our OP did respond and said, from like bunnies to almost zero. Then she switched medications and it's up to probably 1 to 3 times a week with cold spells in between. Another Redditor also brought up how OP posted that they had dead bedroom 9 months ago.
Okay. So they've been going through their ups and downs like everybody. The thing I didn't hear our OP do was talk to his wife about any of this. I hear a lot of hinting at things or beating around the bush of a subject. You know, in that moment when you're saying, would you like to bring some lingerie? And she says, why would I bring that? In that moment, that's when you probably should have put that at the forefront and stopped beating around the bush. You know, we can definitely still fit in other activities. It doesn't have to eat up a whole day while you're on vacation. But I also understand that for a lot of people, when they go on vacation, they want to spend as little time as they can in the hotel room.
Some people prefer being intimate at home versus...
Sure, it can be a very much a comfortability level and not wanting to do that where other people have been laying in all the germs. And you can get into the argument. I can understand everyone's viewpoint on it. And maybe that's how she feels, but you're not going to get to that place of understanding how she feels unless you ask the questions. And all you did was assume that she doesn't want to be with you intimately. Again, though, that's why I ask about the past. Is this something that she's done repeatedly where you're not receiving any of those things that you need in the relationship? In my opinion, OP, you drop the ball. You're allowed to have your feelings and feel like the intimacy isn't being reciprocated in a relationship. But what you're not allowed to do is push those feelings forward to the point where you're lashing out at her before you're even allowing a conversation to happen. That's where you went wrong for me. Learn how to communicate. It'll take your relationship a lot further. You're 4 years in, you just got married. But I will say this though, especially when you're in a relationship, there's never going to be time to do anything. You have to make the time. That goes for both parties though. She needs to also understand that too. But you are the a-hole in my opinion, OP.
So the consensus on Reddit, it seems to be the OP is the a-hole to themselves. A lot of Redditors ranged from attacking OP to providing insight for OP. And let me just go ahead and preface this by saying, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, if you're lacking that intimacy or that romance that you're lacking from your partner, you're doing yourself a discourtesy by not communicating with your partner on that. And for anyone that's trying to shame someone for their feelings of hurt and almost abandonment just because you're either a male or a female, and as a male you should put up with it, and as a female how dare you have all these emotions and you're a little wacky because of them, I think that is rude.
Sure.
And unkind of Redditors to do that. As a person, it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, you feel what you feel, and those feelings aren't wrong. It's how you react to those feelings, and when you lash out to your loved ones, that makes you the wrong person. Talk to the people you care about. Let them know the things that are lacking in your life. Try and make it better by communicating, because nobody can read your mind or understand how you feel all the time.
There are mind readers everywhere.
Everywhere. As I said before, for me, the problem here is the true lack of communication. If our OP had to run away into a basement and cry by themselves, that is a very, very sad relationship that he's in, rather than go to your partner and actually show them how you feel. Reading that and looking at the situation, it's almost as if our OP doesn't trust their wife. Why are you in a relationship you can't trust being vulnerable with your partner?
There's a lot missing from the story as far as their background and everything. 4 years in, you are correct. It does feel like something's off. And why would you have proceeded with marrying someone when hopefully this is just one aspect of their life? Maybe we're pushing too far into it, and maybe other aspects they're really good at communicating. Maybe sex as far as a topic for them is very hard, because for a lot of people, even in a long-term relationship, that still can be a hard thing to talk about if you haven't learned how to talk. I hope he was able to take the advice he got, and that they're able to grow their relationship in a healthy way going forward.
I agree. Well, let's go to our next story and see what you think about just in case savings accounts. Am I the a-hole for setting up a just in case fund for my daughter? My daughter has been married to her husband for 3 years, and they recently had their first child. The entire time they've been married, she's been a housewife, and now she's a stay-at-home mom with no plans to return to work. I think that's fine and have been supportive. I also know she and her husband both have sizable life insurance policies if, God forbid, one dies, they'll be okay. However, she also signed a prenup, which again I think is smart, but according to my daughter, she'd get a very small settlement, and even with child support, there's a good chance she'd have to return to work, and after being out of the workforce for a bit, who knows if that'll be a challenge. My main worry is my niece fell into this scenario, and even with child support, she struggled. So my husband, her father, and I set up a just-in-case account. If she and her husband divorce, she'll have money to fall back on just in case. If they remain married past the time my husband and I die, it'll be added to what she'll inherit. I didn't intend on telling her about it unless it happened, but my husband pointed out that if she was ever in a situation where she wanted to leave, but worried she financially couldn't, it'd be good for her to know she has a plan B. So we told her, and she was a little surprised. She said she appreciated it, but felt we were rooting against her. I said we love her husband and hope they have a long, healthy marriage. We have always been supportive, but this is similar to a prenup, a just in case, a last resort. Well, she told her husband, and he's pissed at us as well, saying that we don't trust him. I said it's looking out for our daughter and really no different from the prenup. I added that just as he'll always want to protect his daughter, we'll always want to protect ours. Am I the a-hole?
I think that's an interesting conversation to have and be a fly on the wall for, because you can see it from both ends, where the parents are trying to make sure that their daughter has a backup plan if something goes wrong. You care about your kids, and although I may not have heard of a situation quite like this where a parent or parents are putting away money for this specific reason, it doesn't mean, I in my opinion anyway, that it's a wrong thing to do. Because they're basing all of this off of prior experience with a niece. They're going, look, I don't want to see that happen again. Is that wrong for a parent to be in the driver's seat on that?
I don't believe so.
All they said was, we're putting this aside if something happens. And if it doesn't, this just goes back to her in the will anyway. Why would that make them the a-hole in any angle of this story? Unless you're very sensitive and the first thing you heard was, you're plotting for our downfall. I didn't hear that. Like I said, though, I can see where some people on the other end who definitely look at life like that, they would say, all you're doing is telling your daughter that her relationship's going to fail. You're not being a supportive parent. I'm certain there are probably comments that echoed that sentiment.
I can neither say nor deny.
Okay. For me, OP, you're not the a-hole. You're good parents. There's not many people that have those type of parents in the world. As far as the conversations you're going to have with your daughter and her husband going forward, that's going to be a whole nother story, because if they can't see beyond their nose, especially when I'm certain the daughter's probably aware of the tough time that I guess that would be her cousin, has gone through because of the divorce and child support and not being able to barely just get by. Your daughter would have seen those things. And instead of seeing it as what it should have been, you may be an adult and moved on with your life, but you're still our child. We still love you and we still want the best for you. Instead of seeing it like that, you've twisted it. And then her husband to double down into that emotion. That's very interesting.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. In fact, many Redditors were happy to hear that OP, as a parent, was still actually trying to look out after their daughter. Other Redditors came forward saying, how odd that the husband would insist on a prenup to protect themselves, but wouldn't understand that another party trying to protect their daughter in a similar type scenario would make them bothered. Other Redditors pointed forward that maybe the reason why this husband was so bothered is because now he doesn't have the control that he wants in his marriage. Personally, looking at this situation, I have to wonder why the daughter would feel the need to tell her husband, potentially knowing that this would cause discord in the family.
It's very true. But maybe it does go back to circling and it being an emotional attack on the well-being of their marriage. That's where I don't know if it's so much the husband thinking he's losing control of the marriage now that she has a way out. I think they're both just very young and looking at it through an emotional viewpoint of us against the world. I know, especially when you're talking about younger couples, it kind of turns into that, especially when you first get together. I don't think that's this because they said they love him.
I think had the parents not set it up in such a way where that fund, that just in case fund, would adapt in one situation or another, then I would have probably suspected that the parents were rooting for it to, like, this marriage is definitely not going to be made and it's going to end sometime soon for the most awful, horrific reasons. But I don't sense that here. I sense parents that are just trying to create this fund, saying, look, this is if the worst does happen. And if not, you know what? Then at least know that we gave you guys another little nest egg for when we go.
And that's really all it should have been. I just hope that this doesn't come at the cost of the relationship due to the fact that they believe that the parents want them to fail.
I agree with that. I hope that this doesn't impact the relationship negatively in the family. But if this is the way that they're both acting, it's going to be rough waters going forward. Well, you were talking about wedges, so let's go to our next story and see what you think about this wedge. Am I the a-hole because I told my sister that I wouldn't help her leave the state to get a medical procedure she is actively against until she told our parents? I don't think I need to spell it out, but I'm going to do so. My 19-year-old sister is a hardcore evangelical. I was until I got to university. It has not opened her eyes at all. Everything is still black and white. She recently discovered that while abstinence is the only guaranteed effective birth control method, you actually have to practice it. She did not. And since all other forms of birth control are a sin, they didn't use any. Fucking idiots. She came to my apartment to ask for my help. My apartment, where according to her, I'm living in sin and fornicating. Both accurate facts that I take pride in. I asked her if it was going to be a virgin birth. She screamed at me that I was being an a-hole for mocking her beliefs. I said I was mocking her hypocrisy. Our state just banned abortion, even if the health of the mother or the fetus is in danger. It's ridiculous. I told her that I would help her out. All she had to do was tell her parents why I had to take time off work, and she has to take time off school. She said that they would disown her. That is maybe true. I don't know. But they didn't speak to me for a year after I moved in with my boyfriend. I wouldn't actually make her do this. I love her even though she is an idiot. I took her and we came back. She is okay physically, but not so much in her mind. She is having a hard time reconciling what she did. I kind of feel bad about rubbing her beliefs in her face before agreeing to help her. Am I the a-hole?
So I guess I will start with this. Your opinions on abortion, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, don't really matter to me so much. Everyone's allowed to believe what they want. What ended up happening here is you're seeing a lot of, and she points it out several times, the hypocrisy from the OP sister that she's received throughout the years has now come full circle. Now, her question is, am I the a-hole for telling my sister that I wouldn't help her? Essentially is what I'm getting.
Correct.
the truth is the actions will always speak louder than the words. And regardless of what you told her, you still ended up helping her. Whether you're right or wrong in the actions that you did, that's not for me to judge. So in my opinion, you are not the a-hole for the conversations you had with your sister. It's right to point out when people are having very much double standards and hypocrisy. I hope that your 19-year-old sister, though, does introspection. It sounds like there's a lot of different strings being pulled. And when you're 19 and trying to figure out what your values are in life, having this thrown on the plate and having to deal with all of the struggles that come along with it, I do walk away from this story feeling very sad for your sister.
So there was only a consensus of 3 real votes here, and it was not the a-hole. While a lot of the comment section in Reddit kind of veered off to many individuals' experiences because of that, I have to say, there are many choices one can make if abortion is definitely a no-go. But no one should speak to others on values if that person can't even uphold their own. And I think for me, at least when I read this, that's the one thing that struck out to me the most. Our OP sister was judging other people on choices that they had to make, very difficult choices for a lot of people regarding a very hot topic. To sit there and throw stones in a glass house and then you don't even uphold your own values really speaks volumes to the person that you are and who you're going to shape out to be. I truly wish our OP sister good luck. Something this profound as shaming others and then doing the shameful thing yourself, I have to imagine will probably crack the foundation of who they are. That's one of the reasons why, regardless of a situation, treat others with kindness. You don't know what they're going through or why they have to do what they do, but it's definitely not your place to do the judging of anyone. Well, let's go ahead and walk away from this hot topic and go to something that might be just a little bit more. Am I the a-hole to something I noticed when I found a little more? I, 38 male, am wondering if I should ask my wife, 39 female, of almost 20 years about something that happened the other night for the first time ever. We were watching a movie with our kiddo. She was on her phone. Kiddo looked at her and asked why she was smiling, and when she tried to look at the phone, my wife turned it away so she couldn't. She asked her mom again why she was smiling, and she responded, "I was," and didn't answer in any way. She just returned the previous week from a week-long business trip, and the day after her return had a tantrum saying, "This is why I hate coming home," when she stepped on something barefoot on the kitchen floor. Mind you, we had really made an effort to clean the house, do laundry, dishes, etc. So she didn't have any extra to do when arriving home aside from her own laundry/unpacking. She used to just leave her phone anywhere. Now she seems to always have it with her. I did take the one opportunity I had to look at it and found texts with another guy that clearly indicated the dates she was gone. It seemed like they either knew each other or met at the conference. There was nothing that I saw suggesting they hooked up, but there was banter that seems inappropriate to me. And I'm wondering if I'm just overreacting. He made a comment about it's getting horny and sent a picture of a wall of antlers. Then there was this, her, morning sunshine, him, how'd you sleep? Her, not great, probably should have come and gotten drunk with you so I could pass out. Him, I keep figuring there has to be a way to tire ourselves out more so we sleep better. These stuffy rooms feel like they engage adrenaline and there's no way to spend it. Conversation has continued, mostly about travel home, how they're adjusting back to normal life, how they've started exercising more recently. I'm just really questioning what the fuck kind of business they have continuing a text chain, seeing as they're from different, albeit adjoining countries. At no point does she mention me, not that he asks. P.S. She hasn't worn a wedding ring in 2 years. P.P.S. This guy looks exactly how she's expressed she wants me to look and facial hair-wise. Any thoughts appreciated. Never thought I'd have to worry about this with her. The too long don't read. Wife seems to be engaging in inappropriate conversation through text with a man after returning from a work trip.
What the spassy? Let's get into it.
Wow, you're just going to leave us hanging, huh?
Yeah. We'll start with this because he's kind of putting all these pieces together. He's very much accusing his wife of cheating. The fact that instead of talking to her about it, right, you're noticing all these things. Instead of talking to her and having a real conversation about these things, you found a moment to grab her phone and dig through it. Shows me a lot more about your relationship than any other aspect that you've explained to me. If you're not willing to call a spade, what foundation had you actually built for yourselves? So for me, our OP is the a-hole and is not the a-hole, the way I'm kind of looking at it. And I'll explain in a second, because there's a lot of back and forth for this one with me. Like I already alluded to before, you're the a-hole for going through the phone and not having a conversation first. Talk to each other. You owe it that, but you didn't. And for your wife, having those type of inappropriate conversations with a work colleague, every relationship is different. Flirting and talking to people outside of your relationship can be very different for every single relationship and what is expected and is okay with each other in. Because what might be okay for this couple might mean not okay for this one. So I don't know how you guys have had those conversations with each other. If it's acceptable to talk and flirt like that with someone that you work with, then that's completely fine. If that's how you guys have understood your relationship. What I see in those texts is not something you would text a friend.
You mean maybe we should have gotten drunk and potentially had sex that night?
There's a lot of innuendos in there.
To help us sleep?
Yep. While it may be clever, I would think that most people would be very disheartened to read any of those type of things coming from your, at this point, wife. The first cause for the eyebrow raise was the daughter, I guess, calling her out and saying, hey, what's making you smile? That's a very innocent question for a kid to ask.
Let me look at your phone, Ma.
Now you're allowed to keep your things. You don't owe anyone an answer. But that would start piquing interest from anyone, I believe. But then you have the other situations that came around this, as far as her being short with everybody and being, I guess we would say, dissatisfied with the current state of the house and overall the relationship. Because if you've been gone from someone for over a week, I don't think that's how you reintroduce yourself back into, the house.
I'm back home from my work trip. I hate it here.
This place sucks. Yeah. That's normally not how you would come back. Again, OP, you are and you are not the a-hole. Feel what you feel, but ask the questions. You assuming that she's cheating on you is a problem. Now, don't get me wrong. Most people who cheat, I guess, are not going to go, you caught me. I cheated. But
at least having the straight up conversation of, look, you're acting a little weird with your phone. Can I go ahead and take a look through it?
Or not even the look through. I don't agree with looking through someone's phone. Let's say you get the phone. You sniff through it.
Swipe.
You find nothing in that phone.
Then I would feel relieved. There'd be nothing there. I'd prefer...
Would it just follow relief? Would relief be the only thing that comes along your guys' relationship lines now that you put them in that spot? You sifted through their stuff.
The one thing that I can say is if I look through your phone, with your permission, right? Like you handed it to me and I looked at it. While I might feel relief that there's nothing there, you might not feel relief because now you know I do not trust you.
And that's where you got to be careful with those type of things. That's why I say an open, honest conversation goes a lot further than you demanding to see someone's phone. Albeit, yes, look at the text. It doesn't sound fun, but there's no proof. That's all I'll say.
So then what are your thoughts on what is at least perceived to be emotional cheating?
It's just as bad as physical.
Do those texts sound like emotional cheating?
For me, I can only answer for me. If I saw, because see, that's the thing. I would never demand your phone. So I would never see your text.
Let's say, as just an example, all right, to make this fun for our listeners.
Is it fun?
It actually kind of is. Let's say my phone is just out in the open. I go to the bathroom and my phone is on and you look and you see those texts there.
I trip, my nose hits it and it keeps scrolling down and I see all of these because that's what it would take. Is I accidentally just keep scrolling.
But you happen to read it. Would you consider this type of texting to be emotional cheating?
In our relationship, yes. But I can't speak for theirs. That might be okay. I'm telling you, every relationship is different.
That's very true.
What is acceptable in one is not in the other. So I don't know if that's within their relationship structure. Obviously, though, the way he's acting tells me no. Logically, it tells me no.
But it sounds like they haven't made clear boundaries with each other on these types of things.
And that's the conversations you have to have. And that's where I say, are we talking about cheating when it comes to the rules of their relationship? Because they're different for everybody.
So the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. In fact, Redditors came forward saying, OP, you're not overreacting. Those texts are pretty inappropriate. There were other Redditors who actually questioned if OP's wife is thinking about crossing the line or has possibly already crossed it, which is why she's talking the way that she is with her coworker. Because in the end, that's a coworker.
Yes.
To be speaking that way to a coworker when it's not professional, sus. Now, I could see the inner push and pull because for you, and this is one of the things that I enjoy about how you think, while you hold yourself and your beliefs to a certain standard, you don't make others live to that certain standard. You provide advice, but our relationship is our relationship, and not every relationship can be like our relationship. And I truly appreciate that.
But we're allowed to have open conversations about our feelings and get to why we feel that way.
For me, it comes from also a place of do unto others as you would want to be done unto you. Now, while we go ahead and get that off the table when it comes to how we look at each other and how our relationship works, let's go back into OP, and we've got some updates. So let me go ahead and actually read that for us. Update. Way too many responses to respond to, but thanks to everyone. Update number 2. It's my birthday today, and she asked if I wanted to have sex tonight. I was surprised and happy at the same time and replied, I'd be a fool not to take you up on the offer. I'm honestly torn though. I don't want to further sabotage anything / poke the bear / miss an opportunity. I'm just not sure how I can enjoy it the way I want to. I think at this point, I'm going to wait till there's ample time to address everything without kids interrupting, etc. I'll be back with hopefully a final update then. I know a lot of you have asked for updates. I'm not sure how to do that other than what I'm doing here. Maybe a post and check in periodically. Update number 3.
Oh.
After kids were in bed, I asked for my present. We have never been big gift people. So when she looked at me with worry, I said, a conversation about where we stand. It was one of the best conversations we've had in years, to the point where I absolutely don't think anything happened, aside from her maybe allowing herself some forbidden excitement. All in all, I'm sure a lot of people have done it. Still hurts, but I'm hoping it's one of those things that happened and is just over, as I haven't seen the same behavior the last 2 days. Ground rules and expectations were set. There seems to be a mutual understanding for our relationship going forward. The more we talked, the less I thought she was invested elsewhere. I also realized that my being calm and assuring seemed to relax her defensiveness. I have not made a decision about testing her regarding the original hiding her phone situation yet. Obviously, I want to, but I'm just not sure at this point what it will accomplish aside from potentially causing more pain. For those of you wondering, yes, the sex was outstanding, both last night and this morning, and the way our day has gone so far, maybe around 3 tonight. For now, I think I'll just continue attempting to build on last night. I'll update if there's more to be had. Some of the comments made me wonder if posting "update me" caused a Reddit notification. If you're that invested, maybe set it for a few months or something, or don't. Thanks to all the people who offered positivity.
Well, I heard some good things in those updates. We have expectations. We had a true conversation. It sounds like they were able to come to an understanding within their relationship, which is important.
When it comes to that type of testing, rarely has it ever been to alleviate worries. It's been more to test how right that person is. And I think that's where, in a lot of relationships, it goes south really fast. I know you're doing this because my suspicion says it is what it is. But a suspicion and an assumption isn't real facts. And to accuse someone of that, as our OP seems to have put it down, it sounds like she was flirting. And maybe because they didn't put those clear boundaries that is not okay in their relationship to do, it hurt them. And now that he's apparently put it down that they've set rules and expectations for each other, so that they can have a good relationship going forward.
You have to see what is acceptable for each other. And that's why I wasn't okay with us sitting there and going, she's a cheater. Go all in. Have the conversation. She flirted, but flirting for everyone is very different. Yes, okay, some of that did go beyond.
But I've also seen in relationships where flirting is fine
Yes.
with other people. Well, let's go to our next story and see what you think about a bit of brutal honesty. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband his fragile masculinity is costing us money?
Mitbau.
Did you just complete it? You. Back in late 2021, my husband Craig, male 46, and I, female 44, welcomed our fourth child into the world. As a result, we needed to upgrade one of our cars to something larger. We decided to trade my super reliable Toyota RAV4 for something bigger since I was the one who drove the kids around most often. I was open and ready to embrace minivan life and was planning to buy something reliable and safe like a Honda or Kia, but Craig had his heart set on an SUV. In his mind, minivans were too feminine. So, against my better judgment, we ended up purchasing a used 2018 Mercedes GLS 450, mainly due to his insistence. He argued that this car would offer similar space to the Kia/Honda minivans I wanted, but with added luxury. Since it was priced like a loaded Honda van, we went ahead with it. After 2 years, I can safely say we made the wrong choice. While the car does have good passenger space, it doesn't seem to have as much cargo room as those minivans. The reliability has been junk. The car has had 8 recalls during our ownership. Even when not recalled, it spends too much time at the dealership because something always seems to be broken. Some repairs have been covered under warranty, but we've still shelled out over $9,000, maintenance not included. The car hasn't even racked up that many miles. Below are just some of the annoyances. The shifting can be rough. Sometimes I press on the gas and the car barely moves, and when it does, it's jerky. For the past few weeks, the check engine light has been turning on randomly. Numerous electronic issues. Since the car's problems have stepped up in the last few weeks, I'm beyond fed up. I don't feel safe driving it around with my kids, and I've even started getting nightmares about it stranding us in the middle of nowhere. Craig always downplays this and claims it's normal for the car to have some issues. Making things worse somehow, Craig's sedan has started developing issues lately. It has begun to refuse to start some mornings and will sometimes shut itself off when it comes to a stop sign or red light. On Saturday, I was supposed to drive our eldest to his soccer game and then take my younger kids to the doctor's office. When I turned on the Mercedes, it sounded very rough. The engine light was on and the temperature reading was extremely wrong. I don't bother risking it and ended up Ubering with the kids. I told Craig about it that night. He listened at first, but when I suggested selling it, he cut me off and said that he wasn't getting a van just because I wanted that. It was so combative and defensive the way he said it, and because I was so tired from the day, I lashed out. We argued, it got heated, and I ended up saying your fragile masculinity is costing our family so much money. In retrospect, maybe my tone was harsh, but he was being needlessly difficult. We haven't really spoken much since then. I'll also be Ubering to work this week since I won't be touching the car. Am I the a-hole? Edit, for those wondering about the car's condition, I've included the picture I took of it on Saturday when I started it up. The engine light is on and it was saying the temperature was -12 Fahrenheit when it was really something like 60 Fahrenheit. Context. For those wondering, this isn't the first instance of his masculinity being threatened by something minor. He also refuses lip balm and purple dress shirts, among other things. Am I the a-hole? Oh, by the way, the picture, it was taken down. It looked like they potentially just took it off.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I'm not able to show you. But it did show the -12 degrees.
So, ROP is the mother. She has kids, and they were going to upgrade the car for her. This was her car that they traded in first. And then for some reason, he had the right to tell her what car she should get next.
She was going to trade it in for minivan life.
I see no problem with minivan life. We do not have a minivan. But what I am saying is, I have seen plenty of men driving minivans where we live, and I have never thought any less of them. In fact, I saw a license plate with the gentleman in the front, 4 of his kids in the back, making as much noise as they could in this minivan. And on the license plate, and I'll never forget this because I saw this 12 years ago, something like that. It was a long time ago. And it said, "Given up."
It was the best license plate.
He had a smile on his face and he looked very happy. I'll never understand this grading on cars and masculinity. And you're a happy man. You have kids. You're taking care of them. You're making sure that the car you did pick fits the quality of life that you're trying to exude or extract from it. She's complaining that there's no space to put any of the cargo in. That's kind of important, especially when you're dealing with kids. You need room. You need something reliable. That's all she was looking for. But for some reason, the car that his wife was driving had to meet the masculinity bar. Why would it matter what car she's driving for him to feel masculine? That's my question. Because I don't hear anywhere where he's driven her car.
Actually.
Oh, there's more.
Well, some Redditors also were confused like you are, saying, why is OP's partner interested in the car that OP is technically the one that's
driving and using it?
OP responded and said, when we go on road trips, he usually drives. Also, he'll sometimes use it to take the kids to school and their other activities, and he doesn't want anyone confusing him with a soccer mom. It sounds so childish when I write it out and I read it back to myself.
I don't know. I guess everyone's allowed to have their envisionment of what masculinity or femininity looks like to them.
I just have to say, there's a segment of our population that doesn't wipe their ass. So,
I mean, and that's very true. And you're also allowed to do that if you want to.
bleh.
I don't mind the way your husband thinks because you're allowed your thoughts. But what your actions should have been was, what car do you think is going to benefit you and the kids? Do you feel safe? Does it get from A to B? That's the only thing that should have gone through your head, not I'm going to look like whatever I perceive other people are going to think of me. But I also understand people put value into the cars and how it makes them feel and look. And you're allowed to feel that way and think that way. I find this ridiculous. At the end of the day, no matter how I try to persuade myself into thinking, it's just, you've given too much credence to other people. And you got to remember this. We are not our thoughts. Just because you think you might look like a feminine man driving a van with your kids in the back doesn't mean you're a feminine man driving your kids in the back. You've done that to yourself, and only you can control how you feel. So it's a little ridiculous. I hope your husband goes and talks to somebody about that, though. Having to throw yourself so hard and project so hard that you made your wife get a car that she's uncomfortable with, and then you're unwilling to make sure that she's comfortable, that she's taking an Uber to work when you guys have the means. Because I didn't hear where they couldn't, especially in this economy, they couldn't trade in the car or get something else. I just hear a refusal. You got to start putting your family first and not your insecurities. So for me, OP, you're not the a-hole for having to tell your husband that his masculinity is costing you guys money, because it is. But hopefully through the comments, you're able to give him some perspective that he definitely needs to go see somebody about his
Fragile ego.
Please find something that makes you feel safe, though.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. A lot of it stemmed down to, it's the car that you use. It should have been your preferences to safety and its reliability that should have been first.
Yep.
Now, other Redditors, one of the funny ones was, a dad in a minivan with his wife and kids is clearly a virgin.
Totally.
And then there was this cute little story from one Redditor. It said, my first date with my now husband, I asked him what vehicle he drove. He looked embarrassed and pointed out the window to a van. I excitedly asked if it was a Pontiac Montana, as I had fond memories of my old Montana. It was. He took me to see it, and on the dash was a stack of coupons. I knew in that moment this man was the one I was going to marry. The van and coupons were a major turn on.
And that's the truth. Don't be embarrassed of those things. You're going to find your other half, and that's going to fit the bill. Like, I think people, again, spend too much time thinking about what other people think.
I agree. Well, our OP does give us an update.
Oh.
So let me go ahead and read that now. Craig and I were able to put the issue regarding the Mercedes behind us, and for the past week, we've been working towards finding a replacement. He was still leaning towards an SUV, and while I considered his opinion, it was ultimately my decision to make. After shopping around for a few days, we purchased this lovely black minivan on Friday. In the short time we've owned it, I can confidently say it surpasses our Mercedes in essentially every way. The comfort is superior, the technology is better, but most importantly, it accommodates the whole family and all our belongings with space to spare. Beyond that, I feel safe transporting my children or just running errands. Craig has also admitted that the minivan was the better choice. He has read many of the responses from previous posts and acknowledged that wanting an SUV, despite the current size of our family, was a bit impractical. He's even opened up to potentially using lip balm. However, the purple shirt I liked is still a no, since he thinks it's too snug-fitting and more pink than purple. He has been in a good mood since Arsenal lost or something, which I guess partially explains his newfound agreeableness. Currently, we are only having the one working van. We will be taking the Mercedes into the garage at some point in the future, and then hopefully selling it shortly after. Additionally, Craig's personal car will also need some repairs. So, I must say, a lot of the Redditors bent sideways concerning the agreeableness comment and the winning of the Arsenal games. It was brought more to my perspective, at least through Reddit comments, that this was actually British humor and where it kind of comes from. The joke that since
I didn't take that as the way I guess people took that.
Yeah, they actually took it literally. Okay. Like, so glad that he's agreeable now that apparently a game
obviously
was
that's not what that would have meant.
But I thought it was funny because there was a comment section where they were saying, look, this is actually us British humor.
Yeah.
And this whole update actually reads as very sweet. Y'all are just twisting it wrong.
I love British humor, by the way. I grew up watching a lot of shows my grandmother did, and she loved the BBC. Not the new kind of BBC. You get your mind out of the gutter.
I didn't say anything.
I saw your look.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's the British broadcast channel, okay?
I'm still happy, though, that they were able to move forward, get the van or the car that works for them, and it sounds like at least Craig was able to read some of that stuff and taking baby steps. You don't change overnight. We have to figure out what it is and how it is we feel towards things. It's about mindfulness, thinking about what you're thinking about, digesting what it is, and moving forward. Is that something I want to keep conducting in my life? Craig's able to do that.
I agree. If anything, good luck with that pink purple shirt.
We take little steps.
The thing is, clothes are kind of a hit and miss for a lot of people. How you feel or how it feels on you, what it looks like. There's so many things that can cause that to make someone say no. I know I've done it many times, and so have you.
You want tight things on me, and I don't like tight things. I like to feel
your dad bod. Give it to me.
I like to feel, what is it the kids say, cozy? I like the bigger clothes.
You mean loose?
Yeah, I love it.
No, give me your shoulder form.
No,
stop hiding it.
Bury me.
Well, I guess maybe our listeners can let us know. Tight or loose? What's your preference?
Always loose.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about surrogacy. My wife has applied to be a surrogate without my knowledge. My wife, 31 female, walks up to me, 35 male, this morning and proceeds to tell me she applied and was approved to be a surrogate mother. We have been married for 2 years, together 7, have 2 kids of our own and have been trying for a third. She's a stay-at-home mom. I provide for the family. I'm clearly agitated by the situation. I'm not yelling and screaming mad, but I'm upset. This decision affects our entire family. Not only have we been trying for our own baby, but this is going to be hard on our family, on our relationship, on her body, her mental and emotional health. I've expressed all of this to her, and all she can come up with is that it's a selfless act to help another family, which I understand it helps another family. But at what cost? Her marriage, her kids? I can't stop what I'm doing to take care of her when she's pregnant, especially if it's not my kid. I don't need or want the money she would be paid for carrying the child, as we are well off because of what I provide. So please, Reddit, tell me how I'm the a-hole. I probably won't have an update for a while. Ironically, this all had to transpire on Mother's Day, so she is currently out with her mother for the next few hours, and when she gets home, I'm going to try to do something special for her with our kids. You know, because Mother's Day and shit. Am I the a-hole?
And shit was what I heard. That kind of sums up. I'm pretty certain how a lot of people feel with this type of scenario. I can get that surrogacy is a selfless act to a point, because you also do benefit from it, from what I understand. I don't remember the figures, but I thought we were at least 6. I know it gets close to that.
Yes.
You know, somewhere in the 90,000+ is my understanding.
Correct.
Haven't seen it in a little bit, but hey, it's selfless. I understand it, because you are giving a family a chance. The odd part here is the husband says we don't need that money. So she is only doing it from that aspect, being selfless. But then you turn the paper over and then you see that they're trying for their own child right now. Why would you sign up to be a surrogate when you're trying for another child in your family?
Well, I can go ahead and answer that.
That was funny. She went, well.
Just because our listeners can't see me doesn't mean that I don't do stuff behind the scenes. Our OP says she enjoys pregnancy, but I can tell you that's a false statement. Maybe she enjoys creating life. I don't know. I'm reaching. Morning sickness, dizziness, mood swings. Last one, she got rhinosinusitis and could barely breathe for the majority of the term. The list goes on. Okay.
Well, my familiarity with rhinosinusitis is, I guess she would have had an inflammation and infection of the sinuses. I mean, she says she couldn't breathe through the pregnancy at the end. That's terrifying.
Very.
I'm happy that obviously things worked out, but that still doesn't answer my question. I asked why she would do it while they're trying to have a child of their own again, because she likes being pregnant. That still doesn't clarify what I wanted to know. I can understand wanting to do that when you're not, but as the husband, I would be very perplexed as to why we couldn't have done it after we had our third child, if that's what we were seeking, because they said they are actively trying. Would that not be weird to you?
It would. I'm wondering if maybe she is so desperate to be pregnant that she'll try and get it any which way. I know there are some women that look at pregnancy or through pregnancy from rose-colored glasses, where they forget all of the things that make you miserable throughout all of it. Such as, I do not miss morning sickness at all. I thought it was horrific. I found ways to, because I knew it was going to come. I knew it was going to throw something up. I made sure that I threw up something that was easy for me to throw up. The mood swings, I remember feeling agitated. I'm lucky that I never had to deal with something such as an illness during pregnancy, but I remember the swollen ankles. It's awful. They don't tell you that you experience all of these negative things. You hear all the positive things, like the baby's moving, you get to do these water exercises, my goodness, the ultrasound, it's great, but it's the only getting the one side of the picture when it comes to pregnancy and not getting the full picture of the good and the bad.
Well, the other half of the full picture on this story is his wife made this decision without ever speaking to her partner first. Now, I'm not saying you need to receive permission from somebody, but I am saying when you're in a relationship, for as long as they've been in one, and you have kids and you've created a life together,
and you're trying to create another,
you owe that conversation to the relationship first, I believe. You have every right, OP, to be upset. I don't think anyone would handle that correctly, especially when hey, we're trying to get our third, and all of a sudden I say, by the way, I'm planning to be a surrogate. I signed up for it and I'm a part of the program now. Not that I want to talk to you about doing this, that I've done it.
So the easiest way that I can equate it to, if it was the other way around, you and I are trying to have a child, and in the middle of you and I trying to have a child, you say, hey, I want us to have a child together, but I'm going to go help this other person get pregnant first. And then, then we can go ahead and have a child together. Voice. I'd be so thrown out of left field. Sure, you could help. Sure. There's a lot of men out there who have provided their sperm to go ahead and assist with families being able to have babies.
Happens all the time.
But if you and I are trying to have a baby and you say that you're going to help someone else make a baby first, I would have a problem with that.
And I would have to respect that, but we would have had that conversation first.
And see, that's the thing. Here, it's not just as simple as
going and donating.
I can go ahead and give this, you're literally giving your time and your actual body to this. That's why surrogacies are so expensive, because as a woman that had the taxing of what you have to go through a pregnancy, make sure everything's fine, you follow certain criteria, because I've heard of some surrogacies where they are so particular with what you eat.
Sure. Eat, sleep, all of it. The way they want their baby is the way you're supposed to conduct yourself, because it is a business first. They're paying you for a service. Yes, unfortunately, the service is your body, but that's the conditions in which you've understood and took on that contract. So I can understand as the husband, yes, having those feelings going, look, we're signing up for something that now I have to also facilitate on top of our 2 kids, on top of us trying to have a kid. Then you're worrying, okay, so now are we stopping trying to have our 3rd? That's where there's a lot of stuff here. I wonder, because it can't just be because I love being pregnant. And if that's your wife's answer to that question, maybe you guys need to go get her into some form of therapy quickly, because that's not healthy. You can love the feelings of those things, but to force yourself and your family into a predicament that goes against everything you have valued and up to this point, I would say something maybe has gone awry. Before you have any more decision making, please, you're not the a-hole, OP, but maybe start steering your wife into a direction where she can find some help.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. This threw a lot of people for a loop. They're saying, wait, your wife and you are already trying for a 3rd, but then she opts to be a surrogate. You had a segment of Reddit that was trying to hate on OP, saying apparently that our OP looks down on surrogacies. However, OP was straight up with saying that they support women who want to surrogate and that it's great for providing a way for couples to be able to have a family. However, his wife has a family and they're trying for a child. And based on previous experience with their previous kids, that whole thing wasn't just flowers and rainbows for them. The one thing that many Redditors were saying was, you need to go ahead and get your wife some professional help right now. To be so side-blinded with this kind of announcement out of nowhere when you guys are already trying for a child kind of spells some sort of red flags on what might be going on with our OP's wife, at least mentally. So I do hope that OP has some talks with his wife and maybe gets her help. You can't just hop on whatever train you want because you want something bad enough and you'll do it however which way you can. That's not a good way to look at the world.
I agree with that. Halt all the baby stuff until you start figuring out some of the emotional side of this, because it's definitely very alarming to have that viewpoint on things.
Well, let's go to our very last story, and I want to bring us back to the dating realm. So let's see what you think about this dating escapade. Today, I fucked up by hooking up with a guy who has a lost and found box. By the way, this is mature and not safe for work. So I, 19 female, have been doing some swiping and came across this 22 male guy, David, late yesterday. He quickly typed a message. Hi, OP. Let me be honest with you. I'm not looking for anything serious, but I'm interested in becoming your new lover if you're interested. I'm free later tomorrow, so why don't we get together and create enjoyable and memorable experiences together? If it's something we both enjoy, we can make it a regular thing. Winky face. Kinda cheesy, but I'm after the same thing. So we decided to meet today. It was gonna take me about 1.5 hours to get there by metro, and during that time he started to tell me how good he was in bed. I have never experienced anything like it, blah blah blah. He picked me up at the metro, and we walked together to his apartment, and Jesus fucking Christ, it's messy for sure, but I see a lost and found box in the hallway, and he tells me that I'm free to pick out one thing that his previous partners have left there. I told him, no way. Anyway, we get into his room and it's fully covered in pictures of him. Pictures on the bedspread, pictures on the desk, pictures on the walls. That and those cum-stained mirrors, disgusting. We started getting down to business and it's just really bad because he is constantly narrating everything that's happening in the most off-putting ways. Example, yeah, father's going to destroy your pussy with his wiener. After some time, I realized that I have no control over the situation and I'm not getting anything out of it. So I stopped, looked at him and said, I'm going home. Nice to meet you. Let's not do this again. So I took my things and left. I was pretty mad, so I wrote to him. Congratulations. You have won the award, my worst sex partner. Having talked constantly about ruining my pussy, I almost preferred when you went down on me because then you were quiet. Not that it was that nice either. Your whole home was built around yourself and your lost and found box is just a joke. You almost resisted wearing a condom. You made me come about 0 times, which is almost impressive considering I've been able to reach 25 times with others in the past. Nice job. Here's your prize. 0 out of 5 stars. I was pretty pleased with that text until I realized I had left my favorite pair of sunglasses at his, and now I'll have to crawl back on my hands and knees to have them returned to me. Too long, don't read? Today I fucked up by having bad sex with someone, mocking them, and then realizing I left my sunglasses at their place.
Well, your sunglasses have now become a part of the legendary, infamous Lost and Found box.
You know, there were Redditors that said, look, just cut your losses here. Our OP said, honestly, fair enough, but they unfortunately have sentimental value to me.
Oh.
You know, other Redditors say, you know, like, have your friends try and seduce them and just quickly pick the glasses from the Lost and Found box and just go.
I guess the best thing to do is probably just reach out and go, hey, by the way, I'm sorry for that. That was meant for someone else. You're great. You're 5 out of 5.
Hibbity dibbity.
Yeah. What? Good luck on getting it back. Maybe we'll get an update someday and you can let us know. Unless there is an update. Did you get them back?
There's no update. It looked like they took it down.
We'll have to keep our... Oh, they took it down?
Yeah.
I was going to say, we have to keep our eye on that one.
They kept all their other stuff. I'm guessing they're just like,
It's time to move on.
I don't want to deal with this no more.
Well, hopefully it wasn't that sentimental, but if you're willing to say that, obviously it meant something to you.
Honestly, I can understand. Oh God, can you imagine? I took this story and tried to walk it myself. This girl, she went on Metro an hour and a half, hoping that she'd have some like amazing hookup. She's all like, this guy, he's all like, I will create enjoyable and memorable experiences for you. And I'm like, oh my God, how many guys in the dating world, in the dating realm, will use memorable experiences on me? You know, like in my mind, that's what I'd probably think. Being 19, looking at it like this, right?
Even
I'm
at
like,
19,
ooh.
I'd be like, that's real cringe.
All I have to say is, if I ever walk into a home or room where there are just pictures of that person on everything, I don't think I could get out of there without laughing. Can you imagine you walk in and you see the bedspread, the walls, they have like legit posters of themselves everywhere.
I wonder how that is extreme, but I wonder if that's more common than we know. Maybe that's bigger because I don't know, but I've seen there's been celebrities that have put their face all over everything they own. And I wonder if it's just a style. I don't know. I'm not sure of the psychology on that, but it sounds like our OP has donated to the Lost and Found box. So was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Hopefully she does get those glasses back. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget your glasses.
Oh man, they might end up in the Lost and Found box. But seriously, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Nice save.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays, and on Wednesdays, we have our Damas After Dark episodes on our Patreon.
Yips.
We would also love to thank all of our Patrons for your continued support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of you. As always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions and comments below. What did you think about the stories today? And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I want to play some V Rising.
Come, my little vampire.
Bet.